Hello and welcome to the bi-weekly meeting podcast for the OWASP Top 10 for Large Language Model Applications. If you'd like to stay up to date with our project, please click subscribe. And if you enjoy the content or have any questions, please feel free to comment and share. Now, on to our meeting.
I think Scott, I'm sure he will join. Why don't we start anyway, because we have quite a few things to cover today from what I saw there. Can you all see the slides there, guys?
Yes. Yep.
So then there isn't a kind of a main update other than a reminder of the roadmap of where we are. So we have the entries now, we're discussing them. There are a couple of items that will probably go beyond August the 1st, but we're very close, and I'll explain why. And then the next phase is to do a bit of analysis, the ranking, the cleanup, and then still aiming for end of September, the pre-announcement, and then October the 1st, the big kind of push of getting our version 2 out. And that's why we move then to, I don't have any other, I think, to share as a project overall. That was kind of the main roadmap. And then ads who can be with us, Super Ads obviously has been very, very busy. So he has updated a presentation with the solutions document with Scott and others. And he's asking, there is a channel there that you can go. He is asking for feedback as much as you can, because I think being threat-based and using threat model is what we should be doing. So have a look. If you're watching this video and you're not on the call, and join that channel and give us much feedback, because it's really, really important to connect that threat modeling with the work that we do. And it looks very comprehensive, actually. His next slide is about where we are with the vulnerability entries, the candidates. So for his part, there are quite significant improvements in the poisoning, which we're trying to move it away from training data, because it's more than that, and the sensitive information disclosure. Again, the channels are there. If you're on the call or you're watching this video, to go and provide feedback and be part of the discussion. And also, the model theft will follow. There are some updates that I would like to see on the GenAI website, but something to take offline with the web team. And if you're part of the web team on this call, make note and let's discuss afterwards. What the important thing is, though, what he's asking is this, what we're all asking is, he has created and shared on Slack a spreadsheet with all the new entries, with threat owners, with possibilities to merge, and some suggestions on renaming. So that's what the next step of the journey for the version 2 is, to go to that spreadsheet, understand the overlaps and the discussions we need to have, and try to get into a consensus. And I'll pause there. Is that kind of clear, or are there other things that we need to clarify more on what happens next to some of the candidates for version 2? Or anyone else who wants to kind of chip in there?
No, Christian, what would be really helpful is a little more clarity on, and this is excellent. I will go look at all of these links and try to find the information, but exactly what the expectation, what you need from us to be able to help with the ranking and the due diligence around the new version of the top 10. Did I cover what we were, Krishna? Did I cover what we were talking about?
Krishna? I think he's feeling his coffee, or he's having audio problem.
Okay. Yeah, I think I did.
I was talking, but it was muted. It's a good thing anyway.
Okay, no, good. Okay.
Yeah, I agree, Sandy. You're right. I also had sent a couple of notes on more things, right? I have a few questions on. I sent the note out, on the list. I don't know whether you got a chance to read it through or not.
I think there are multiple conversations happening with multiple inputs on this. I think what this slide says is, well, let's start bringing together those conversations Ads has provided a nice spreadsheet of the entries that we have and the entries that we're proposing. We have thread owners assigned to this, and what he's asking is, which I think is great actually, is can you reach a consensus? And as part of that reach a consensus, engage with everyone, including the list that you released, Krishna. That's very useful aid to help the conversation. And in fact, today I will take you through the conversation that's happening on agents, where I'd like you all to be part of that.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, carry on. I didn't stop you.
No, makes sense, John. Thank you.
Yeah. And this leads us to my updates. I have two updates today. One is, if you remember last time we talked, we had two proposed new entries on agents, which is a new and emerging area. One of them came to the top, but I talked to Emmanuel and we merged it into one. It still overlaps with excessive agency. We also take note of the fact that, the plugins, which are extensions orchestrated by agency, the entry is a bit outdated and overlaps with agency. That's the frequent feedback that we get. We talked about, and we formed in the core meeting, we said, John, why don't you go and coordinate the conversation on agents? So I set up a channel and a few conversations, a few calls. And out of those conversations, a working group emerged with Emmanuel, again, you have the names there, Krishna, Andy, and myself. And we reviewed the changes in the landscape of how much things have changed with the new frameworks like LangGraph, AutoGPT, Llama agents, and so on, and also the Llama 3 release that brings agentic capabilities, and the conversations about bringing models and agents on phones. Google talks about bringing Gemini on Pixel 9 and powering agents. So how do we consolidate all that into a coherent entry? And so we had those conversations. Something to highlight as some of the key points of that conversations is that we need to talk about two different things. One is agentic workflows that we see in applications anyway, or in agents, where there is an orchestration of tools, where there is a clear scopes, steps narrowing. It isn't just free for all orchestration of agents. A typical example of that is that LangGraph, where they have a directed graph to drive and constrain the agency. So that's an agentic workflow, and you can use that agentic workflow to use agents orchestrating extensions. Traditionally, we refer to them as plugins, but that was because what OpenAI called them. If you look at Llama, they call them, or Meta, they call them tools. We need to standardize on a terminology there. So I propose that we use extensions because that's what they are, the tools that we orchestrate. So you can have workflows, you can have agents that orchestrate extensions, and that's the first generation that we have seen. But then the other thing that's emerging, and I want to highlight with a proposed entry, is that we have conversational multi-agent architectures that don't actually have that constraint and orchestration. So if you look at AutoGPT and some of the Llama agent framework, instead of having that orchestration and constraint, it's just simple conversational flow between agents to a degree that they influence each other. So there is a pattern that's called reflection, where the response of one LLM feeds into another LLM, another agent, and that actually will then filter its output and come back again, creating very, very autonomous scenario. And I call that a full autonomy, which allows you to have adaptation depending on the responses. So these are scenarios that I think they're beyond agentic workflows and simply orchestrating tools, which is why we brought in that new entry. But regardless of all that, having entries brings new attack vectors, memory, the environment, for instance, if you put it on mobile, and kind of sharing of things and the adaptation. So if you look at one of the frameworks, the Llama framework, for instance, they're using message queuing for message backbone. And that, again, represents an attack vector. So this is the overall picture that we see. So an escalation of agency, if you like, from agentic workflows, orchestrating tools, all the way to fully autonomous agents with conversational architecture. And the question is, how do we actually capture all that into top 10? And this is where, as part of the conversation, we have arrived at 3 options that I'd like to take people through and get feedback. Before I do that, let me pause in my monologue. Did the kind of the previous description aligns with your understanding and what you're seeing in the agentic space? And if so, if not, ask questions and kind of challenge that too. So we see 3 different options. We can take the option where we update the existing, and then we say excessive agency is the entry where it covers all things agentic. We update it to reflect all the things that we talked about. And we also update the insecure plugin extension design. And instead of calling it plugin, we call it extension and make it more generic. We're referring to Llama. So that's one option. Another option is to say, and I'll explain in a minute why, merge the excessive agency with the insecure extension designs to talk about orchestration in one place. And the final one, which is the original one that I was suggesting, is talk about the excessive agency to cover traditional, if you like, agentic workflows, but pay more attention to the new view on fully autonomous agentic patterns, multi-agent architectures, by replacing the insecure plugin design with this new entry. And there are reasons for that, why we proposed all that. So the first one in my mind is kind of the balance view, the kind of the business as usual that says updates, actually, the kind of updates the I think I actually changed that. So apologies, that's a mistake there. So we still want to keep the agency and the plugins, but we need to update them so that they have, and all the other entries, they will have the items that they need. And that's, that's good because it keeps the familiar structure. We have updates the extensibility beyond something that people talk to us all the time, that don't focus so much on OpenAI, but it was necessary because initially it was only OpenAI, and we focus on the more mature part of agency rather than bleeding edge. The cons is that the overlaps that people complain about excessive agency and extensibility, especially around access control, is still there. And I think this is where actually our judgment is needed. If we feel that all the advanced features are bleeding edge, that would work. If we feel that this is actually those advanced multi-agent architectures are being adopted, then we may miss an opportunity to talk in more details about those patterns. So ignoring the little mistake that we have here, and we'll edit it, we want to keep the entries as they are, updated, and focus on the more mature parts of agents rather than the fully autonomous agents. This is the variation of the balanced option, and it has a purpose, this one, where we do the same thing, but we realize that actually plugins mostly, or extensions, are used for this agentic integration. So we merge them into one. We talk into one place about what agency is and how extensions work. And that allows us to create a space for a new entry, because we recognize that this is an important area, but there are so many other things in the LLM space. So maybe by condensing all that, we create a space for another entry that gives the ability to cover more in this expanding landscape. Obviously, the downsides of that, it reduces the detail of the topic. It forces us to make a balancing act. Either we overload the agency or we overlook the extension vulnerabilities. And of course, not all workflows will be agentic. So there will be extensions that are kind of straight through. If we go for this, we will need to create strong backing material to make sure that we don't miss out of the condensed coverage. But this, the purpose of this is to say, yes, it is important, but they're part of the same problem. Let's deal with them in one entry, and then let's create a space for a new entry. And the final one, which is the more forward-looking, which says, let's update the excessive agency with an updated definition of the workflows, of how extensions are orchestrated, cover the extensions there. But then instead of having the plugins, let's replace it with an entry that is more forward-looking and looks at the multi-agent autonomy escalation, the fully autonomous agents that I talked about, the multi-conversational agents. That would give us thought leadership on something that's new, but huge in my view, that evolves even the role of the AI itself, not just LLMs. It allows us to give better clarity on the variations that we see. We don't need to explain the overlaps between excessive agents and plugins anymore. Obviously, the downside of all that is we elevate the focus on agents, and that takes the focus away from other important items. We overlook, again, the vulnerabilities and extensions. And as we said, not all workflows will be agentic. But the key differentiator here is, the three things we need to think is this. Do we feel those advanced agentic patterns deserve attention, in which case we create a new entry? And do we think that in the greater scheme of things, we need to condense them a little bit more so to create a new entry? And that's really the three proposals that the three options that we see. The next step is your feedback on these options, and then making a recommendation. And Andy, myself, and Emmanuel and others want to create some proof of concept entries to test and finalize. But my view is that regardless how we slice and dice this, we need to create an initiative to continue tracking development, because I think this area will keep changing regardless of how we capture it in the top 10. And it will need to have some backing material, because there's no way we can cover all this in one go. And Sandy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so my only thought on this, and I'd be interested in like Heather and Ads and Krishna's, to help. I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, there's a problem, but the next step is to tell people how to mitigate and test for it. So as we try to think through, what is the best way to incorporate it, think about how are we going to recommend testing and mitigating, and maybe that'll help us with, how to classify it.
No, I completely agree. And I think, I try to do that in the proposed vulnerability. There are new mitigations emerging, like triadic adaptation, for instance, is something that people are proposing. So those are things that we need to look at, but also the proof of concept. We want to create a few entries to see how that plays out, because again, if we just end up describing agentic architectures, then there is no value to have an entry. It has, in other words, I agree with you, there is a problem and we can mitigate it. Otherwise, we're just telling you there is a problem. At this stage, I think whichever way we go, we have enough material to support that. It's just the emphasis, how forward-looking we as a group need to be, in my view.
Yeah, and I'd be curious. I mean, this is so cutting edge. Like us that are knee deep in this, of course, we're completely curious and we're playing with all the tools and we're looking at it. But I haven't heard of anyone actually building, saying, okay, we're going to put this into our large medical facility to do agentic workflows. Like it still seems very experimental.
We're getting mixed, and it's the same. Fabio is on this call. We're getting mixed kind of messages on that. So there are sectors that are looking at agents. I see some in the national infrastructure where people want to overcome some of the inaccuracies and some of the kind of human in the loop limitations with multi-agent stuff. But Fabio also said in one of the messages on the call that, we now kind of consider that as part of how we build applications in our organization. So I'd be very interested to hear from him too. But I agree with you, that's a bet that we're taking. That's why we have these three options. And I think, we need to look at the appetite, and all views are equally valid because we don't have that data to support Sandy one way or another.
Well, and then just some more, if we look at how the top 10 was used, we look at, people are testing against it, that and using it as a baseline, I think that helps us understand what the people that we're actually doing all of this for, what they want from us, which is basically what should I be worried about?
Exactly.
And then how do I test for it? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's a question of, but instead of me repeating that, Anthony, you have your hand up. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Yeah, so as I'm understanding it, for that fully autonomous risk that I think is emphasized most with option 3, you would still be able to cover that maybe to just a smaller extent in option 1 and 2 anyway, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. We're not going to drop that. It's a question of how much do we feel comfortable. And I'm not advocating any of them at this stage. I really want, to have this conversation and understand what people think and what they're viewing in their own groups and environments, the focus being.
And you said that option 2 would be the one that would provide the most space to talk about the more mature architectures around agents today, correct?
Option 1 is the one that does that. And option 2 does it too. But option 2, what we do is we merge also the extensions and plugins to create a space for another entry if we feel that there are other items that can be accommodated, because agents and extensions work together in many ways.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else who has views? Again, that was instead of us making decisions, I wanted really to have this conversation with all of you and see the feedback. Heather or Rachel or Robert, I'm reading names now in front of me, or someone's called iPhone there, or Ivan. I'll tell you what,
I'm mainly with Sandy on this one, right? Like stepping back and looking at the reasons that we're doing this and trying to figure out what each of these can be described as in terms of what we're trying to get people to do this are going to help us figure out how to consolidate or separate these. Because right now we're just talking about concepts, and concepts by themselves are great, but it's about the taxonomy.
And I think that's what we try to do. I remember the slide that doesn't do that. That's what the candidate entries try to do actually. And I will encourage everyone to look. In fact, it has a threat model there too. It's all about how do you safeguard the excessive autonomy that comes with those multi-agent architectures, and how do you defend the new attack vectors that memory, for instance, if you look at applications, they don't have that sense of memory that you have with an agent in an agentic environment, or even a mobile device. There will be people who will store those things on SQLite databases. You have adaptation. So, and again, I would not, because I wrote it, I would strongly advise people to read that candidate entry. That's exactly what I tried to do. So, as these agents interact, they start influencing each other, and then you start having adaptation. What stops another malicious agent indirectly adapting your main agent? And I think those are things that I agree with you. They're kind of a little bit bleeding edge, actually, maybe bleeding edge. The purpose of this is to make us think and say, well, these are valid things, but maybe not the time to discuss. But for sure, I'm not suggesting we decide on the architecture constructs here. That I completely agree with you.
Okay, great. Well, so the ask is go through and give you feedback on which option we believe is the best option.
And
okay.
if you have the time to read the original candidate entry that I'll post it there, which describes some of the problems. I'm very interested to see how much we think it's relevant to us. Yes, Anthony?
So part of the balance for the option where we would make room for another risk is what is the value of the new risk being added? Do you know offhand what the top contender is for that space, like that new risk, if one opens up?
I think it will emerge from the conversations. I think there are plenty of new things, including organization, including deepfakes, including all kind of things. So this is why I thought when Andy proposed this, I thought, oh, we're talking about agents, but then I realized that actually this whole item is part of an emerging landscape. So let's consider that possibility too, instead of having a tunnel vision on agents.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Again, I don't expect to cover this on this call. I just wanted to open it up. I think fantastic points there about, being cutting edge, leading edge, or maybe bleeding edge, and also let's think in terms of vulnerabilities and threats and mitigations rather than, oh, it's something you need to worry about, because everyone can worry. But telling people to worry, we don't do anything. Good, good, good. And as I said, we want to build to propose an initiative there to track this, because I think we will see more and more of that. I've seen some examples where the whole notion of that we talk about of human oversight actually will become incredibly difficult to scale and manage. So we need to remain open on that. But that's the kind of beyond version 2 topic of conversation. And that's what I had about agents. And that's the kind of conversations we need to have around those candidates. I will share the link, and there is a channel you can come and read there too, the arguments. And let's try and wrap it up. The other item that I have, that's with my other hat, the standards liaison. So the UK government issued a proposal of a code of practice that they're going to take it to the European standardization body to make it a global standard. It's based on 12 principles. Actually, it references heavily OWASP AI Exchange, and they're asking for all of you with certain questions. And I talked to them this morning, actually, and they want really technical feedback on whether the things that they propose are sensible, and also there is a conversation about, they have this shall, which is a must, should, and could, and they would be very interested in our views, on all of us really, of whether we think that should. So I created a draft, and the draft is really, kind of put that guidance and all that I will share with all of you tonight. It would be fantastic if you all, I will notify the LLM Discuss channel. If it would be fantastic if you all went through there and gave your opinions, and I will make sure, you're all part of the contributors there, and submit to the UK government by August the 9th. Again, use the standard Google stuff to put the submissions or create your own documents and suggest them. Just bring your views. And that's all I have for today on this topic. Any questions or thoughts on this?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm glad for the opportunity. I'll jump in and look at it. Thank you, John.
In fact, my draft references these checklists in various places, so you'll be pleased to know that. Okay.
Ivan has a question.
What's that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning to you, John, and good morning to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Sorry, we didn't see
Yes.
you.
Cool. So may I ask you to please go back to your first slide, since if I go to right, you show where to contribute regarding the a new version of the LLM architecture. Is that right?
Okay, sorry. Let's go back. This is actually a good slide. So for those of you who haven't been in any of these calls, we are going through the version 2 of LLM Top 10s, and we have a roadmap. And we went through a conversation where we had some candidates there, we had voting, shortlisting, and now we're in the process of merging and down selecting. And what we want out of those conversations, we have some threat owners leading those conversations. I'm one of them with Andy and others, and we want your input. And there are channels on the on Slack that you will see them. So for instance, on ads stuff, the model poisoning, the information disclosure, mine is called Agents Discussion. You can join that channel and you can be part of those conversations so that your opinions of view is reflected on the next top 10.
Got you. Plus, could you please go back to the previous slide, since I want to ask you about it?
Yes,
yeah. So no. Sorry, the next one with the architectural draw.
The architectural one.
Okay, that's another item that we want feedback on. You're right. Yes, go on.
So this architecture already reflects the interoperability with agents?
No, this is about the OWASP top 10 for applications. So we use an example LLM application and sample to showcase the risks and threats that you have, and to use it for threat modeling with the appropriate roles. And this is what we're asking for people to give feedback, whether this is can be improved, gets things right. These are so the different things that we're asking people to contribute.
Okay, got you right. Sorry, I was mistaken. But so let me ask you this. So perhaps in the version 2, are we going to have a new an updated version of the general architecture?
I think this is a work in progress, and I think we will update it as there is a channel there that talks about diagrams and architecture. So again, that's the place to go and contribute. We will update it based on the entries that we have, and it's constantly being updated anyway.
Yeah, it'll be
Got you.
used. It'll be used across a variety of different resources that we'll publish. So it's just says since we're going through the 2.0 process, it was time to review the architecture and make sure that it matched, and we were taking into account the new developments that some John was been talking with as well.
And even if you have views and strong, everyone should have, join that channel and the Team LLM Solutions doc, where Ads and Scott and others are spearheading this, and ask questions and contribute. And that's guys, that's really the best way to catch up with what's happening. Join the various channels. This call is all about giving you an instant update, but it's not really a substitute for that vibrant conversations that happens on Slack.
Got it. Thank you, John. Thank you, guys.
Anyone else that had their hand up and I didn't see it? Nope. Let's move on then. So we covered all that. The next steps, this, and over to Scott.
Thanks. This is the boring regular slide to remind people to go ahead and if they have activities or things we want to plan for the outreach roadmap, go to this spreadsheet. This is sort of our source of truth for all requests and interests around everything we're doing. So please go ahead and update it if you have requests, and we'll pull those into the planning process for outreach. One other thing I want to comment on here is, well, first, I'm getting back from vacation, so I'm running a bit late on getting a few things done. So I'll get those wrapped up this week and we'll get caught up. But the other thing is that we are going to start a regular meeting for outreach on originally a bi-weekly basis and hopefully extending to once a month. So that's at least the plan. And we'll have details of that. The current time frame for that is using the same time that we're using for this meeting, but on alternating week. So not obviously today, but next week, the plan is to have our first outreach call. So I'll send out more details. If you're interested in participating in that, you can join the channel, the outreach channel, and get details around that. That's it for this one. Next slide. So we've been making progress. As you know, we launched the sponsorship program. We have folks who have already signed up as sponsors. We have roughly 30K with I don't know why yours isn't updating for some reason. I can't see the numbers on yours. That's weird.
Right. The outreach initiatives. I use I don't know actually. Is it okay? When I'm in presentation mode, it doesn't show it, but it should show it now.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you see? We'll use this.
Reload it. Reload your screen.
Oh,
Do
I
a
see.
refresh on. Yeah. Do a refresh on your tab.
On your browser.
Let me just do it. And then let's do the slide.
There we go.
There you go. Thanks.
There we go. Awesome. Okay. So as we know, we've been getting into a budgeting planning cycle. I did get there's a budgeting slide that seems to be missing here as well. But oh no, it's the next slide. Sorry. So we do have funding coming in, and we have sponsorships. We talked about the new sponsorships we had last week. Right now, as I said, we'll be very public with what our goals are and how we're reaching those goals. Right now, we're still targeting to get to 200K by the end of 2024. That is our sponsorship goal. We have closed in just the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of sponsorship that's been open. We've already closed. Have 30K worth of sponsors coming in, which is great. We're going to have lots of activity and benefits for those sponsors. And then we also have a line of sight to 60K, and we're building more pipeline around that. So this is all about reaching out and helping the project be sustainable to fund things like initiatives and the reach and the work that we're all doing around the research and resources for the industry. I'll do an update as we go through, but I've gone through a couple of requests, and I'll go through the rest of the request by the end of today and finalize our budget allocation. But to give you an idea of the funding that's coming in, we have a percentage that's allocated to each of these 4 buckets. This is the breakdown right now based upon priority and the funding coming in. As more funding comes in, we'll obviously be able to do more things. We've already approved requests, Rachel. So for the initiative funding for the research that you had requested, that is good to go. We have coverage for that. Krishna, we also have coverage for the newsletter extension, so we can continue to do that on the operations side. I'm in the process of evaluating the OWASP PDF request so to put in. I want to make sure I understand if this is for just this project or if this is to support OWASP overall. We do have some budget available from OWASP, so I'm making sure that we're using project budget for project stuff and OWASP budget for OWASP stuff, and we'll fill the gaps where we need to. Because we are also, any of the funding that comes into us as a sponsor also provides some funding to OWASP. So we have a kind of a minimal commit that we provide to OWASP as part of our overall budgeting. So I just wanted to share the snapshot with you. I'll have more details the end of the week, this week. But we are going ahead and moving forward with a lot of this, and would love to get any of your companies who are looking and want to support our work to sponsor. There's lots of opportunities. There's a sponsor toolkit that's available. And I'm happy to share that with folks around the sponsorship opportunities, what the gives and the gets are, the opportunities for promotion and for visibility for your companies sponsoring the project. Next slide. So I have been working with the OWASP teams. We do have an expense process now in place that we've agreed to. So for all of our expenses that we have against our approved expenses, there is a process that we're going to use the back-end service for OWASP for. And so what you're going to need is to get, in order to fulfill or to file an expense, you'll need to have a project ID. We have a project ID set up, and I'll show an example there. You have to have your budget category and then the approved budget ID. So once we approve a budget category, I'll have an ID, and that ID will go into, so for example, Rachel, I'll give you an ID, and then you can expense against that up to the funding that's been approved. And then CC me on requests so that I can make sure I'm auditing and making sure the process on the back end is continuing to be followed through. This is a little bit, again, we're breaking a lot of new ground here for OWASP, and so some of these are new processes, and I want to make sure we have some visibility and auditability over the top of them until we get to a run rate speed on it.
And next slide.
Next slide.
Is that you? Rachel, there you go.
Hey, yeah, thanks. Can you guys hear me okay? Yep. Fantastic. Sorry, had to switch headsets. Always got to check. So deepfake guidance as well. The way we had a call for volunteers. We had a second draft that's being finalized now. That will get ready on the 6th, so next week. And then we'll actually post that by August 9th to the core team channel for the last bits of feedback and finalization before we're ready to publish that. I do have a question out in that core team channel about the standards for citation. I added a manual since he's been doing a lot of the citation work, but really, if there is any standard anyone's aware of, just shoot that to me. I just want to make sure that we're formatting this to be in line with all of our other publications. Our next piece of work that we're for the cybersecurity guidance umbrella is around responding to an AI enhanced cyber attack. We already had a call for volunteers. We had the kickoff call. The volunteers are currently working on an outline draft, and then we'll probably put out another call for volunteers after we have that outline draft, just to see if there's anybody who is interested in maybe like a piece of that outline. Hoping to wrap up like the first draft sort of by the end of August. For our other pieces of research, the project that looks at using AI that has been developed for offensive security penetration purposes, such as HackerGPT, and testing that capability against honeypots in order to write a comparative analysis to traditional pen testing tools. While that has been kicked off, we think that's actually going to get delayed several weeks because several of the participants all at the same time got COVID. So we're hoping to sort of reconnect with that team in a couple weeks, and I'll be able to hopefully give a better update and a timeline there. And then, just heard from Scott today that our request for the API funding for the research we're doing around exploit generation using AI was approved. So we'll start scheduling out that process and gathering the volunteers for that project as well very quickly. Finally, I did put out in the core team, after an interesting discussion with my research partner, Brian Nakayama, and kind of bouncing this idea off of Sandy, because Sandy's publication around cybersecurity governance, the checklist that she published sort of mentioned this. But the same group that's been talking about the same group that has volunteered, and we're currently working on the incident response guidance to respond to an AI enhanced cyber attack. We thought a sort of follow-up to that sort of a natural fit would be an incident response guide for cybersecurity professionals. If they get the phone call, hey, our AI was just attacked, it was just compromised, whatever. What do you as a cybersecurity professional need to do? What do you need to look at? What are the next steps that you need to take? So I did throw that out into the core team just to see if that is appealing to this group. Would love to hear feedback from everybody on the phone call if everybody agrees that seems to be important next step.
I think it's critical, Rachel. And supply chain. So most people, what happens if LinkedIn gets attacked? What's the impact to my organization? What happens if Databricks gets attacked? And we're on Databricks. I mean, there's so many different. I personally think it's a priority to understand the how to respond to an incident right now. That's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I think selfishly, those of us who were talking about this, we all kind of had the same selfish insight, which is we're probably the ones at our organization that would be contacted for an incident against the AI. And it's like, there's not really guidance that exists out there. So like let's make some, because we're probably going to be the people who get called. Any other comments? I thought maybe Ivan had his hand.
Just to kind of a little bit to augment what you said there. All the feedback that I get when we talk about AI governance is that those are the areas that are less understood. Vulnerabilities, you can write code and demonstrate, approvals, kind of even threat modeling is well understood. When it comes to these especially with the non-deterministic, especially with the weaponization, you know, how are you going to contain something that took over your innocent chat bot and started spewing misinformation, supporting an extremist group? So I'm, very supportive myself too. It isn't just your selfish, Sandy strong and correct view. I think that's something that comes from all the cyber teams. And great work here. The question I had is, did they meet and do all the work together and they got the COVID at the same time?
No, it's what's interesting is none of these people were like in the same place at the same time. But a lot of them were traveling to different conferences, came back from the conference, right? And I actually am sort of expecting that might happen after Black Hat and DEF CON. We might have some people coming down with some sort of conference ick, maybe not COVID, maybe not flu, but it was quite a coincidence, but we're just kind of letting everybody recover before we circle back.
And that's good to know. And also for those who joined, like Ivan, for the first time, just to clarify, these are initiatives in parallel to our top 10. So we have top 10 and the headlines, but then we have, and Sandy started that with the checklist, different initiatives where we publish work. So you can get involved in that too. And Rachel is driving the CTI layer, which does some phenomenal work there. And again, the Slack channel is at the top. And before I pass over to Anthony, Talis just posted a message saying he cannot do audio, but he has written an instance response guidance and agrees and offering to help. Over to you, Anthony.
Yeah, a quick, I guess, logistics question. So it sounds like this is coming out soon, this report. I have a couple of colleagues who might be able to comment on this, but they haven't signed up for OWASP before. When I signed up many months ago, I'd go to the OWASP site, and then I would sign up to get access to Slack, and that's where you'd be engaged. And they'd be able to give feedback. Is that auto approved nowadays, or is there still a manual review process that might take a day or so for people to get to Slack?
You can join Slack anyway. We still encourage people to take an OWASP membership because it's the right thing to do, and it keeps an organization. And it's really straightforward. You do the application, it gets approved, you get the email, and you have your OWASP email. So very simple, very easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's two different paths. There's one for Slack access, one for OWASP.
I would say, because before people tell me not to advertise that you can join, join OWASP, get the membership, and use that address to join Slack. Scott, you were going to talk and stop you, sorry.
I see.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that if you want to just go ahead and get started with Slack with the intent that you are also going to be joining, you can start with with your existing Slack ID and just join our Slack and start getting engaged right away. Although we do want folks to be part of OWASP, so we don't want to slow down the process. But there is a little bit of a manual review because there's an allocation of an email address, etc., that goes through that back end process. So if you want to jump in, you can jump in directly with the Slack. I think one of the things we should do is for this call is we should probably have sort of a quick one slide summary of getting involved. I know we've had those in the past, but I think we've gotten a little lax of that. So I think maybe we'll add one of those slides in so that we can answer these questions every week for folks who might pop on who are new, or might come in and look at the slide details, may come in and look at things after the fact that are recorded. So thanks for bringing that up, Anthony.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Rachel, is it your last slide or you have another one?
Nope, that's it. I would just say, sounds like we have support for the incident response guidance. My research partner and I will sort of circle back and try to get some idea of when we'll do some kickoffs for that in relationship to the other pieces that we have in flight. So if you're interested in collaborating on any of these items or on that, please do join that Slack channel, and you'll see an announcement from us fairly soon so that we can collect volunteers. And Talesh, I have already written you down as one of the volunteers who will work on that. Thank you so much.
Great stuff, and expect to hear from you too, Rachel. I like that topic. Okay, over
Yep.
to Sandy.
Yep. So on the checklist, I had hoped to, I had pushed my roadmap to be a little more aggressive than this, but I moved it out. Specifically, I went through all of the feedback. I appreciate it. There's been so many great people, Anthony, Bill Wilder, Heather, great feedback in there. One of the things I wanted to look at was, with version 2, the most important thing is I want to create something that people use and it's valuable, and it's just not another long document that people put in their to-do list. And so Scott created a Center of Excellence document, and I wanted to compare what he did with the checklist and see if there's any duplication, and there is quite a bit in there. So the plan is to for Center of Excellence, move all of the information in the checklist that is a better fit in the Center of Excellence. Just if it's covered or missing, condense that into that one single document. And the checklist itself, my goal is to create something that is a cheat sheet, a toolbox and a Swiss Army knife, something that people, it's simple to use. People immediately understand how to understand the threats, where to get started. It's grounded in solid evidence and reliable data. I don't want to duplicate information. If somebody has explained it better, or there's a more comprehensive place to go get information, I want to point to it. So changes, minimize the explanations, expand on defenses and mitigations, and incorporate things like what Rachel is working on, the threat intelligence, the red teaming, the data gathering. So again, the purpose is to be a simple cheat sheet that people can immediately get it, start using it, and start navigating the threats within their organization and how to protect it. And I will start being much more vocal on the channel, the LLM governance checklist channel, looking for feedback, looking for people who want to become involved with it. So if Anthony, I know you and I have had great conversations in the past, but I apologize. I haven't done a great job of making sure that everybody was on the same page of what was in my head. So reach out to me. I put if you do it, I'm sandy.dunn@owasp.org. You can find me on Slack. You can send me an email, please. I want to get, I want everyone to be involved so we create something that's useful.
And Sandy, just to understand, the ask here is that this isn't about just the content of this. You want to retransition this as a kind of set of lens on generative AI, the checklist, on all the other initiatives, and you want views on how to do that, or ideas in general?
Well, I guess I'm saying, it's just like Rachel said, I'm creating the document that I need and that I want. Like, okay, what are the threats? How do I defend? How do I test against this? For every CISO that's out there who has the business bringing it in and has, this acceleration of attacks within their organization, how do I prepare myself so I can defend from this? And so I'm looking for people's input, feedback, and agreement that to keep it simple and make it a useful tool and not necessarily an encyclopedia that's trying to cover every topic in explanation.
And that baseline is the existing version, or you have a new draft for anyone who's watching this on YouTube?
There is a draft. I will share it in the channel. I can share. It's I'll share it. I've shared your channel. I'll make sure and share the channel in this message right now. The channel where people can reach me.
Fantastic. That's great work, and I think you're being unfair. You have been very clear as what you were trying to do.
All right.
Anything else?
I think there's one more slide. Nope.
Let me just click then on the slide. Are you sure?
Oh, maybe not. I noticed you don't have the latest version for some reason. Like I added my email address, it doesn't show up. Oh, now it does. I don't know. Maybe not.
Actually, it does now.
Okay.
It doesn't. I don't know what's going on with my browser. Apologies. It just, again, it needs to refresh. It's there. It just wouldn't come. So let me just see the. So I have this one, and then I have this slide. Is that yours, or is it someone else's?
It's not, I think it's Scott's. It must have got mixed up.
Do you have it there where you want to share it? The slide?
What was that?
You know, the slide that's.
No more slides. I
Okay.
was saying there was one after mine, but it's Scott's. Yeah.
Scott, are you still on? Is there something you want to take us through?
Yeah, this is just the updated stats from from the web and from our GitHub growth. We're continuing to see the more stars, and that's good news. So for helping us both promote and show the traction that the project is taking on. So just wanted to share, this is just the update for this week.
Fantastic stuff there. I like how it keeps going up higher and higher. Any questions, anyone on this, or any comments? Right. Well, great stuff. I think we covered a lot of stuff today. I will share someone asked, I think it was Anthony said, I mentioned the document. It's the candidate entry that we had, but I'll post it on the Slack channel, Anthony, so that you can all read it to help you with those options. And I'll put a message with the options there and the more specific ask for how to support that. Otherwise, I think we're doing great. I think we're progressing version 2. We're creating, version 2 of the LLM top 10 is the compass, and we're creating so much exciting stuff around that. That's great. And Ivan, you asked about how to contribute. Go to those channels and be as vocal as you can. Anything else before I close?
No. Thank you, everyone.
Great to see you all. Thank you very much for joining, and see you all in 2 weeks' time. Take care.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for checking out our bi-weekly meeting podcast. If you'd like to stay up to date on all of the latest news for the OWASP Top 10 for large language model applications, please click subscribe. And of course, we'd appreciate it if you'd share with a friend to grow our community. We'll see you in 2 weeks.